Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Melanie Smith, English and ESL professor, and I decided to start this YouTube channel because of people like me who were born in a country, Jamaica, in which two languages are spoken, and in our case, Patois is the antithesis of English in many regards. I say this because in Patois, all subjects use the same verb. In English, it's very much different, however. And so, as I travel around the country and as I visit my island home, I hear people making these mistakes, and I decided that I need to do something about it. In addition, people who speak Ebonics, for example, they suffer the same fate. In Ebonics, a sentence does not need to have a subject and a verb. It's okay to say, she outside. In standard English, we say she is outside. And so African American boys and girls, they go to school thinking it's okay to include words like fixing and ain't in their research papers. This is perfectly acceptable when we're speaking and in informal contexts. But when they go to college, they need to understand that there is a difference between what is acceptable in a spoken format and what is acceptable in writing. This channel is for students who will be taking the SAT or the ACT and would benefit from a detailed yet concise explanation of grammatical topics. This channel is also for ESL students who are moving to a country in which English is the first language and they're learning the rules and grammar of the language and maybe struggle a little bit. Here we will provide concise yet informative videos that will explain these grammatical concepts, and it is my belief that we will all learn more as we embark on this journey together. The truth is that many of us who were born in these countries and regions in which English had to coexist alongside a dialect which was often the derivative of English could benefit from English as a second language classes. And there should be no shame in that. Knowledge is power, and we must aim to acquire it by whatever means necessary. So because knowledge is power, let us tap into the power of learning how to create proper sentences. Because knowledge is power, let us tap into this knowledge that will help us communicate more effectively. Let us tap into this knowledge that will help us get promotions on our jobs because our bosses wish to know that the people who are promoted are able to speak properly, write properly without using AI. AI has transformed the world and it can be a great thing. But when you're being interviewed and people are bowling questions at you one at a time, there is no AI. And so it is beneficial for us to learn these principles, learn these grammatical concepts so that we're able to think on our feet. We're able to answer questions intelligently and represent ourselves well. Today we're going to begin our first lesson and we're going to take a look at subject-verb agreement, a concept that gives most people problems even if they don't know it. Let's begin. At the core of subject-verb agreement is the idea that a singular subject in a simple present sentence will require a singular verb that ends with S. So if the subject is singular, your verb is going to require an S. Granted that we're talking about the simple present, right? So here I have a table that breaks it down. And when I'm teaching, this is exactly what I put on the whiteboard so that students can visualize what I'm saying. We have the subject pronouns here: I, you, he, she, it, we, you in the plural, and they. And that you plural is just like you all, right? So if I am conjugating the verb drive in the simple present, then I will end up with I drive, you drive, he or she or it drives, we drive, you all drive, and they drive. So if the subject is singular, the verb is going to require an S. If the subject can be replaced by he or she or it, the verb is going to require an S. Okay. And at the bottom, you see a note that all subjects can be replaced by one of these pronouns. And the subject of a sentence is simply the who or what the sentence is about. Okay. So, what do I mean by all subjects being able to be replaced by one of these subject pronouns? Instead of saying my mother, I can say she, provided that the person or the group I'm speaking to knows to whom I'm referring when I say she. Instead of saying my brother, then I can start using he after I've established that I'm talking about my brother. So my brother as a subject can be replaced by he. My mother as a subject can be replaced by she, right? So that is what I mean. Let us do some practice. And the question that is guiding us says, which of the following subjects is singular? And again, if the subject is singular, then the verb is going to require an S. My mother and I. Is that singular or plural? That is plural because there are two people. My mother, one, and I, two. The puppy. Is that a singular subject or a plural subject? It's singular. It's one puppy, so it's considered singular. And therefore, if I'm talking about the puppy, I could say the puppy seems to be pregnant. A singular subject will require a verb that ends with an S. That is the principle we're reinforcing, right? My best friend. Is that a singular subject or plural? It is singular. So if I'm talking about my best friend, I can say my best friend lives in Africa. She loves to write poems. The verbs would require an S when I'm talking about my best friend because my best friend is a singular subject. The same would apply for the hospital. It's one hospital, so it's singular. A lawyer, one lawyer, singular. For Mr. and Mrs. Simpson, however, that is a plural subject because there are two people involved. So the verb that comes after Mr. and Mrs. Simpson should not have an S. I cannot say Mr. and Mrs. Simpson lives in Atlanta. And many times this comes out in our speech and we don't even realize it, right? So we would need to say Mr. and Mrs. Simpson live in Atlanta. All right. And then respect, which is an abstract noun. We know it exists. We experience it, but we can't touch it. Respect is singular. So the verb that comes after respect would also require an S. Okay. For negative sentences, we use do not, don't, or does not, doesn't to create them. And problems exist here too, right? I often hear African Americans say, he don't know me. And it's okay to speak that way because conversationally we can do whatever. But when we're writing, we have to make sure that we're writing standard English. So to negate our sentences, we use don't and doesn't appropriately. I don't write. You don't write. He doesn't write. Now the verb no longer has an S. We use the base form of the verb. We don't write. You all don't write, right? And then we is duplicated. Sorry. They don't write. Okay. So we're going to do a little bit of practice. The first sentence says the children play or plays together. The question we need to ask ourselves when deciding whether we're going to use play or plays is whether the children is a singular subject, and it is not, right? Children is plural. It's the plural of child. So in this case, we would say the children play together. The next subject is my parents. That is also not a singular subject because parents is plural. So the verb cannot have an S at the end of it. My parents live in England. Sherry, who is one single female, enjoys cooking rice. Because Sherry is a singular subject, the verb must have an S at the end of it. Sherry enjoys cooking rice. Mike and his friend, those are two people. So this is not a singular subject, and therefore the verb cannot have an S at the end. Mike and his friend drive to church. If we're just talking about Mike, then the subject is singular. So we would say Mike drives to church or his friend drives to church. But Mike and his friend, that's a plural subject because there are two individuals involved. We would need to say Mike and his friend drive to church. Subject-verb agreement does get a little bit more complicated than this. Today's video was more of an introductory video. There's much more to come. Here at English Doctor, I am aiming to improve your English and your communication skills one video at a time. Please make sure you like, subscribe, share, and add a comment to this video to let me know how I can best serve you. I look forward to creating another video that will help you and me as we embark on this journey to improving our English. Bye for now.